talk about the use of brushes and gradient filters, specifically with the exposure slider, to redirect your viewer's eye and perspective straight to the subject. Okay, that's something I do for a lot of photos, specifically the bangers of the gallery. So these are like my absolute favorites. Usually for sneak peeks of galleries, I'll do these on, because it can be time consuming. So it's not something I do for every single photo, but some photos that I notice absolutely need it. It's a great tool to have, and it's very effective to redirect your viewer's eyes straight to the couple or your subject or whatever it is that you're shooting. The other thing I do is sometimes I use spot removal in conjunction with this to remove distractions, but that's another video for another time. So let's dive in. This is the photo we're going to be looking at. Here's the before and after of the photo. You notice some distractions have been removed. I'm going to do a video on the same photo about removing those distractions, how I do it. But you can see it before and after. The main thing that stands out right away, that I don't know if it's very obvious or not, but is when you look at the clouds, right? You look at the sky, and now you see that color, that kind of depth, that texture to the clouds, the vibe of it, which this is what it looked like in person, right? So it's not, I'm not into creating something that's not what it actually was on the day of. I'm not really about photoshopping a crazy sky when there wasn't a crazy sky. I'm all about bringing back those things that maybe get lost in in the capture, because sometimes the cameras can't deal with that giant tonal range when photographing a certain exposure. Some things get missed out, some things are more overexposed. So in this case, the sky was definitely brighter once we exposed for the couple properly, and some of those colors were lost, so I brought it back in post. So that's what these tools are for, and I think they're great tools. So not only to redirect the attention to the couple, but also to stylize and give it a little more pop and wow factor to it. So let's dive in. As I said, this is before and after. I'm going to expose here. This is without any of my brush or gradient adjustments, as you see here. So let me show you, let me go ahead and break down kind of what I did and the order of it. First thing that I did is something I absolutely love with a new Lightroom, is the AI masking. I think they're absolutely awesome tools to have. They made it so much easier, whereas before you'd have to go in by hand and using the auto mask tool. You'd have to go and just paint certain aspects of the photo, which now you sometimes have to adjust because AI doesn't get it right every time. So it is good to know how to use those tools. But the AI has made it so much faster and easier. So we'll see here, one thing that I did is I applied the sky mask, right? So all you do is you go here, you hit plus, and then you go to select sky, and then you just click it and it'll appear for you. The one thing you can do is you can hit the letter O, and that stands for overlay, so that's also a clickable option here, and I'll show you what it selected. From there, if you like what it selected or not, you can adjust it, you can add more or take away. I will show you how I do that. Let me get rid of that mask and go back to our original. So you can add or subtract from that mask, and you can do it in different ways. You can do it manually, or you can do it using AI. If you want to add some more, you can simply select the tool you want to add with. There's lots of really useful tools. I'm liking a lot of the color range and luminance. That's for certain uses only. In this case, we're going to stick just to the brush. So you can add with a brush, and then you have the brush, and you can just simply just paint it on to add onto what you think it missed, if you think it needs it, right? The feature that I mentioned, auto masking, is, let's say I want to add and I use the brush, right? So auto mask, what it does is whatever your little cross is over, auto masking is going to only paint over whatever color is under your cross, right? So if I put it over the blue suit, the cross is going to tell the computer, okay, only paint over this shade of blue, don't mask anything else. So I go ahead, and as you see, it selects only the blue, not the water behind it. I still recommend, to be kind of as exact as you can. Don't be lazy and just make a giant brush and try to select it like that, because there will be some bleeding. You can see there's a little bit overspray there. So I still, even it is auto mask, I still try to be, you know, conscientious of that and staying within the borders and letting the computer figure it out, but at the same time helping it out a little bit. So in this case, you can use that for this area, being so that it's so similar. You could on-click auto mask, which you either do it here, or you can just hit the button A. That's a quick key, auto mask. And right now I have it turned on, so I would just kind of, you know, pop it in this direction. And that's something I didn't actually do it. I'll hit O so you can see what it does. I didn't actually do it because I feel like it made that mountain too dark and it started to feel a little surreal. So I didn't like the way it did that. Simply I hit Command Z or undo, and it does away with it. The other thing that I mentioned here, let me hit overlay again so you can see it, is that you can subtract. So you can subtract using the same exact methods, all the same tools. You hit brush, and all it does is you're erasing from an area that you don't think it should have been selected by AI. So that's a simple. You can do auto mask on this as well, but as I said, it looked great right there, so I'm gonna leave it. I just want you to know that those are options if AI doesn't land it right. So let's look at the adjustments I did on this photo. The two things that I did, as I said previously, was exposure, right? So the exposure of the sky, I wanted to bring it down because it was overly exposed, but my couple was perfect. The situation was the sun was setting behind a mountain in front of the couple, so to my back, and it had set enough that it wasn't lighting up the mountains, but it's still lighting up the sky a little bit, casting this cool color on it. But the exposure level was higher, and when I was exposing for the couple, the sky was brighter. So obviously you can't do both unless you do an HDR or multiple exposures at different multiple frames at different exposures and then stack them, but that's not what I had time for during a portrait session and wedding where you got to get back to the reception. So simply did one mask in post-production, brought that exposure down, and I started bringing back some of the color of the sky that was lost because of the overexposure. So what I did was I brought down the exposure first with the mask AI, the AI mask selection, and then I brought my tint up, so added a little magenta or purple to the sky to bring that color back that the sky already had but was getting lost. And when I say sky, it's the clouds, but essentially anything above the mountains that's in the sky. The next adjustment that I did, I felt like it was still a little overexposed on the top. And now the reason why I added another adjustment is because when I look at this frame, the brightest spot in the frame is the sky, right? And the sky is distracting me from my couple. So as soon as I see the photo, I see just a bright white spot on the top here. Boom, that's where my eyes go first. But my couple is down here, so I want to make sure that I divert that attention back down. And to do that, I was going to actually darken it a little more. So bring down the exposure a little more. Sometimes if everything in the background is brighter than the couple, that's okay, because then the couple is a little darker and that's where your eye will drop. But when it's this case where the exposure behind the couple and everything that's not the sky is lower, now the brighter white bar at top is going to be distracting. So what I did was I added a gradient filter, so a gradient adjustment, which your gradient adjustment is just, you could do this with a brush as well, but I find the gradients can be useful for a certain like soft transition over the entire thing. And being so that I was doing just a simple exposure and I wanted to slowly bleed over or just gradually transform and go from, you know, the -70, you know, the point, almost a full stop down, right, and exposure, and I wanted to slowly transition into a softer, so maybe to 1.1 of a stop. That's why I use gradient. So if you see here with the overlay, you can see as you stretch out that gradient, right, it becomes really, really defined, which you'll see here, the adjustment, and as you stretch it out, the transition becomes a little more gradual, which bleeds down, and it gives it more of a natural fade into where you want your adjustment to end. Okay, you can rotate this around, so you can move the direction of it, you can flip it, you can do all sorts of things. The quick key for this one is gradient mask is M, so when you hit gradient mask, you'll get this cross. You make the adjustment, and then you simply click and drag, and you can adjust how gradual you want the transition to be. You can adjust the angle and all of that, okay? If you want to do it from here, you simply hit the plus, and then you can go to linear gradient. Boom. You can do radial gradients too. Some people have done that for vignette style, so I don't really use it much. I use mainly the brush and the linear gradient. And you can select objects, you can select subjects, but those are the new AI masks. We're gonna stick to these first. I added a gradient here, as you see, boom, with a simple adjustment of adjusting for exposure. So bringing the exposure down for a little more of a transition to darken it up. So if you look at before and after, right, it kind of darkens up the sky and gradually a little bit more of the mountains, the tree, until it gets to them, making them now a little bit slightly higher in exposure than the sky. I felt like there was still another adjustment I could do for the sky. This felt like the top was still a little too bright. Just that top little bit of the frame was a little too bright. This was more of a personal choice. It's more of a artistic choice. I think that as is, it's really nice, but adding that last bit of pop, boom, it just kind of darkened up the top, which in turn, as you notice, there is no color adjustment, no color, added to this picture. It brought out a little bit of that nice yellowish, warm cloud tones that were already there, but we were missing out on them because the exposure was so high. So now adding that gave this, I feel like specifically here in the corners, it's that beautiful little warm magenta-ish tone with some yellow and blue. It's that pretty little color. It just came back. It gave it a little more of depth to the clouds, and you see more definition on these clouds right here. Sorry, I'm using my hands if it's disappointing, but I should use my pointer so you can see what I'm talking about. These right here, boom, right there, that color right there, that's pretty. This, all of that. So it kind of brought it back down and brought it out of the clouds as if it was down here, right down here. You see it. Here was getting lost with this gradient, this linear gradient. It brought it back. So now I feel like the sky's good. I'm looking at this image. It looks great. I'm getting all the stuff that I want out of this picture, out of these gradients, redirecting my eye in the picture. And I found that there was one more little thing that I wanted to add here, and that was this adjustment that brought out a little bit more of the color in those corners that I mentioned. So as you see here, the only adjustment was a slight exposure adjustment, no colors added. I'm gonna put the gradient tool so you can see where I brushed it. And that's this area right here where I felt like there was still a little bit of brightness. When I take it off, you'll see, if you stare right in there, you'll see how it kind of darkens it up. And in turn, by darkening it up, it pops those colors a little bit more that we're getting lost in that exposure. And that's really nice. I feel like that's a nice touch. So one other spot that I feel like I would add a little bit of this maybe is right down here where the dress is real bright. You know, it's really pretty, but I don't want this area to distract from this zone right here. Boom. And as you notice, this is just a strict brush adjustment. There was no colors added. So stylistically, the photo, it is what it was naturally. I didn't add any colors to it to make it look like something that it wasn't. I'm simply just bringing back what was already there and enhancing the image so that when the viewer experiences it, they're directed now straight to my couple as opposed to the brightest spot, which was the sky. So let's take a look at without any of the masks here, boom, and with it. And you see, to me, it adds a little bit of that mood. It adds a little bit of that, like, that vibrance. It adds a little more of a romantic feel to the image, because now it's no longer just a white sky. It's the clouds that I saw that I was excited to capture in the moment, but I just couldn't do multiple exposures and blend them together because the wind was great. There was just a lot happening. So I wanted it to look as natural as possible. And I think this is, the end result was such a simple little adjustment, which normally an adjustment like this, adding these 4 masks, wouldn't take me longer than 2 minutes. It's something that happens really quick, especially if you get your quick keys down. I hope this was helpful for you. If you're interested in seeing more or following along to be notified when new things pop up, follow me on Instagram at Fuego Magic Photo, and you'll find everything you need. We'll see you on the next one.